mighty Lancers of India, descendants of fierce martial bloodlines, masters of sword and steed, whose battle cries have echoed across the world. On imperial service to the British Crown, they head out to the front lines of the Great War. Across the seas, on unfamiliar shores, may lie total destruction or eternal glory. In an age when horse cavalries have transformed into tank battalions, one of the world's largest cavalries still in existence is the 61st Cavalry. Raised in 1953, they were merged from the legendary cavalries of erstwhile princely states. Their motto, Ashwa Shakti Yashobal, horsepower is supreme power. With glorious days of battle behind them, today they are champions of equestrian sport, earning prestige for unit and country. Jawaharlal Nehru famously called the 61st Cavalry a bridge between the present and the past. These horse warriors won glory at home and in the killing fields of the Great War. A political assassination in Sarajevo lights the spark that ignites the First World War. It rips the world into two warring factions, the Central Powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Turkish Ottoman Empire, pitted against the Allied powers of Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Japan, and eventually the United States of America. It reverberates across the globe, reaching India, the brightest jewel in the British Empire. The Indian princely states owe allegiance to the crown and pledge their own armies for the British war effort.
When the First World War broke out on 5th August 1914, that time Jodhpur's Maharaja Regent Sir Pratap Singh volunteered that his regiment of the cavalry, Jodhpur Lancers, should immediately be going for the war.
The Jodhpur Lancers, raised in 1889 by the Maharaja of Jodhpur and named for the lances they masterfully wield. They are dynamic duos of man and horse, fighting as one. Now on the side of the Allies, they head for foreign shores. The Western Front. The Allies have been fighting in trenches, in the bitter cold and freezing rain. For over 3 years, the Jodhpur Lancers have fought here.
The Jodhpur Lancers by that time got a nickname of Jo Hukum Lancers. Jo Hukum means whatever be the order, we will do that. And finally, in February 1918, the orders came that the Jo Hukum Lancers will now be transferred to the Egypt and Palestine region.
In the Middle East, war has been raging for over 4 years. The Allies, led by the British, are pitted against the formidable Turks. The Turkish Ottoman Empire, backed by the Central Powers of Germany and Austria-Hungary. Fierce campaigns have been fought in Gallipoli, Syria, Palestine, Mesopotamia, and Sinai. It's time for the Allies to deliver a decisive blow. Field Marshal Edmund Allenby draws up a battle plan to drive the Turks out of Palestine and Syria. He sets his sights on the port town of Haifa in present-day Israel, a vital supply link between Europe and the Middle East, and a logistics lifeline for the Turks. The Jodhpur and Mysore Lancers are chosen for this audacious task.
He tasked the commanding officer that day, Major Dalpat Singh, that I want Jodhpur Lancers to attack, Mysore will support you, and Haifa is to be captured.
Major Dalpat Singh is the best man for the job. He has already earned a military cross, a rare honor for an Indian officer in British India. But this is a tough task on rough terrain. Mount Carmel, a 1,500-foot natural fortress that surrounds Haifa. German and Turkish gunners occupy its ridgelines, ready to shoot down any troops approaching from the plains. Pinched between its steep slopes is a narrow valley, or a defile. This is the direct route into Haifa and the deadliest. Enemy guns cover every inch of it. A cavalry charge through the defile would be suicide.
His whole plan was to avoid the defile.
At 10 a.m., the Mysore Lancers would climb the slopes of Mount Carmel to silence the gunners.
So that when the Jodhpur attacks down below, these guns do not interfere with the main attack.
Jodhpur are set off towards Haifa, avoiding the defile and taking the hard way through the river Kishon. As Mysore destroys the gunners on Mount Carmel, Jodhpur would complete the river crossing. Together, the Jodhpur and Mysore Lancers would charge in and take Haifa using speed and surprise. D-Day. Jodhpur and Mysore Lancers split up. Jodhpur Lancers head for Balad al-Sheikh, 7 kilometers outside Haifa. Here, they must wait for Mysore's signal before commencing their attack. Mysore Lancers head for Mount Carmel to neutralize the enemy's guns. They must do this latest by 2 p.m. Time ticks away. There's no word yet from the Mysore Lancers. On Mount Carmel, things are not going well for the Mysore Lancers. Steep inclines, boulders, stony ground. It's treacherous terrain.
The horses were lamed out. The brigade commander decided that beyond 2 p.m. he could wait no longer.
If the Mysore Lancers cannot make it in time, the mission will fail. The Jodhpur Lancers finally receive their orders. Major Dalpat Singh rallies his men. They ride towards Haifa.
They went on and headed straight to the wooded portion of this bank of the river Kishon.
Every second is do or die. Still no signal from the Mysore Lancers. If the enemy guns have not been silenced yet, Jodhpur will not survive the river crossing. Then, gunfire. The Jodhpur Lancers are caught in the enemy's crosshairs. Advance through the river is impossible. Major Dalpat orders his men to abandon the river crossing.
At this very moment, a machine gun fire came and hit Major Dalpat Singh. His falling there, in fact, acted as a catalyst.
Second in command, Captain Aman Singh Jodha picks up the reins. He has won honors for gallantry on the Western Front. But these are his toughest testing grounds. He leads his men into the defile.
The defender, the Turks, and some German troops too, they had known that any attacker coming on Haifa has to pass through this narrow passage, which in military terms is known as defile. Anyone passing through the defile was bound to suffer large number of casualties.
The odds are stacked against them. But the Jodhpur Lancers ride on. They are on course to making history.
Seeing a squadron of Jodhpur Lancers cross the defile, within no time the Turks began to run.
Their brothers in arms, the Mysore Lancers, also succeed in their mission. The two join forces for the final charge into Haifa.
Exactly within 1 hour, the battle was over. Jodhpur Lancers had killed about 100 of the enemy. Equal number was injured. They had captured 1350 prisoners of war. Large number of ammunition and horses were captured.
The Lancers liberate Haifa. They also free the leader of the Baha'i faith, condemned to death by the Turks. It is one of the last and greatest cavalry attacks of the First World War.
It is said that this victory was achieved purely because of the boldness, speed, quick thinking, surprise that they achieved.
Sadly, there is no photographic evidence of the historic charge to victory. The Jodhpur and Mysore Lancers received 36 gallantry awards. But not all the heroes of Haifa returned home. Major Dalpat Singh succumbed to his wounds. 7 other brave hearts sacrificed their lives. Laid to rest on distant shores, their courage never forgotten. A 100 years later, their legend lives on. In the heart of India's capital, this prominent landmark, now known as Murti Haifa Chowk, commemorates the centenary of the Battle of Haifa. Life-size statues of 3 unknown soldiers, one each of Jodhpur, Mysore and Hyderabad, overlook the hustle and bustle of modern India. The days of the cavalry charge may have ended, but their days of glory have not.
आप लोगों का सभी का 61 कैवलरी में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। आप बड़े नसीब वाले हैं कि आपको 61 कैवलरी जैसी यूनिट मिली है।
There's new blood in the 61st Cavalry Regiment.
ये वर्ल्ड की एकमात्र घुड़सवार सेना है।
Dafadar Abrar Khan takes charge, a 5th generation cavalryman.
ये उतरना है।
His great-grandfather fought the Battle of Haifa. Now it's his time to take the legacy forward. He has just 32 weeks to transform these recruits into daredevils on horseback. Trainee riders or Savar recruits come from 3 warrior clans, the Rajputs, Marathas and Kemkhanis, who are known for horsemanship. Basic military training complete, they will train to become expert riders, and they'll have to start from scratch. Familiarization. Rookie Savars must learn how to groom a horse before they can ride one. Lesson 2. Getting in the saddle and staying in it. Lesson 3, lunging, which is all about control. Over the next few weeks, they will go onto bigger challenges. It's not just new riders whom Abrar Khan must put through the paces. This is free laning.
Free laning is putting a horses within lanes where they jump those obstacles in their own free will.
The horse's instinct to avoid obstacles at all costs. The trainer's job to block and redirect.
Whatever is taught to a horse has to be repeated over and over again so that it remains imbibed in his memory and he remains sharp.
Gradually, the horse learns to leap with confidence. Every muscle in harmony. Airborne for a precise instant before the perfect touchdown. It's time to take things up a notch. This part of rider training typically has 6 to 8 jumps. A lot harder than it looks.
हम जब रेजिमेंट में आए थे तो थोड़ा नर्वस सा हो गया था घोड़े देख के डर गए थे.
First up, calming the frisky horses. 500 kilos of raw horsepower is fresh out of the stables. And at the reins are first-timers.
चलो माउंट हो जल्दी.
Now that man and beast have made peace, it's time to take a leap of faith. But faith won't get the Savars far if they don't master technique. Savar recruit Ayub Khan rides up on Viru, a prize jumper, who's in no mood to indulge novices.
घोड़ा जैसे जंप पे गया तो उसने झक्कू मारा और वो गिर गए. फिर हमारा उस्ताद लोग बोले गिरना पड़ना चलता रहता है ट्रेनिंग के दौरान. फिर हमने वापस हिम्मत बंधा के हमारा हौसला अफजाई करके हमारे को वापस मतलब माउंट किया घोड़े के ऊपर.
Riders must learn to sit deep in the saddle, and they must learn to rein in the beast to establish who's boss. But a horse's respect is not easily won. Anything less than perfect technique, and the rider will eat dust. For these new riders, the scorecard is dismal. Instructor Abrar Khan has his work cut out.
जब जंप के ऊपर जा रहे थे तो आपकी बार बार डायरेक्शन चेंज हो रहा था, तो मतलब आपकी जो मददें हैं वो बराबर नहीं है, तो मदद को जो है आप अपनी बराबर लगा करके रखना है और घोड़े को आगे की चाल में रखना है।
It's a simple rule of training. A trained horse schools the inexperienced rider. And an experienced rider trains the untrained horse. Lessons hopefully learned. The riders regroup. Once more, they prep their horses for the jump. Will they make it? A split-second error, and Savar recruit Irfan pays dearly for it.
हम तो डर गए थे पहले तो उसको देखते ही, क्योंकि वो इतना ज़बरदस्त गिरा था, मेरे सामने ही गिरा था वो।
Horse riding is one of the most injury-prone sports. Even champion riders are not exempt.
जब राइडिंग करते हैं, राइडिंग के दौरान गिर जाते हैं, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है, लेकिन हमें जो है हमारी ट्रेनिंग को हमने बरकरार रखनी है। गिरते हैं साहे सवार मैदान जंग में, और वो शख्स क्या गिरेंगे जो घुटनों के बल चला करते हैं, है ना? अभी कर लोगे सारे? जोश है आप लोगों में? बहुत बढ़िया।
Dafadar Abrar Khan and his faithful Raftar show the way. These trainee riders may not have mastered the moves, but they already have the spirit of a cavalryman. After a long day at work, it's time to break free.
Sandbathing is a relaxing bath. When a horse comes back from training, it needs it to stretch. When it stretches, it actually stretches in the manner it wants to, where it feels a pain or stiffness in one part. It stretches it, rolls around and feels happy about it.
The stresses of the day shaken off. It's off to the showers. Unlike horses, the rider's duties aren't done. But the hard disciplinarian has gone, making way for the loving caretaker. Horses are fed 4 to 5 times a day. On the lunch menu today, alfalfa grass. But their staple diet is hay, up to 10 kilograms a day. Other items on the menu include oats, barley, and rock salt.
When you are training and when you are riding the horse out of passion, the bond between the horse and the rider and making that bond is an art.
There's nothing like one-on-one time and a hands-on connection. A 52-minute massage gets the job done. It's part spa treatment and part medical exam to soothe aches and check for injuries. As shock absorbers of the horse, the tendons get special attention. Hoof picking is an important part of grooming. Any shortcuts here could infect the hoof, taking the horse out of the running. But it's not all fun for Raftar, a charger with German and Indian roots. When he protests, his human cajoles. Patience will be rewarded. Abrar Khan knows what his buddy craves. Nuggets of jaggery. It's a sweet ending to the hour of grooming. The brotherhood has grown stronger. Loyalty and trust expressed in a language that goes beyond words. The equine stud farm of Babugarh, established in the early 1800s. These Victorian-era stables of mud and brick have been in use for over a century. Here, champions are born and bred. Each superstar stallion is worth anywhere between 20 to 35 lakh rupees. With the hefty price tags come iconic pedigrees bred for just one purpose: to pass down their precious DNA. Man and horse have had a glorious history of over 5,000 years, much of it written in blood. When man and horse together conquered the world, from Alexander the Great to the Mongols, from the Turks and Mughals who built empires on horseback, to Maharana Pratap and his legendary Chethak. Generations of gallant soldiers and steeds have brought us to the present day. The 61st Cavalry may no longer fight battles on horseback, but it still needs the best horses for victories in equestrian sport. Male horses or studs are selected based on what sport their breed is best suited for: polo, show jumping, or parading. Once chosen, the stallion makes a sperm donation. The mares are then artificially inseminated. Gestation begins. Over the next 12 months, nature and science conspire to bring the next equestrian star into the world. Midnight. It's tense in the stables. After a year of waiting, it's time to give birth. There's a new life in the stables. Foaling season is March to September. The first weeks in the nursery, mother and foal are inseparable. This time is precious. In just 6 to 8 months, they'll have to say goodbye as the child is sent off to remount training school. Horses too go through 34 weeks of intensive schooling, much like the Savar recruits at 61st Cavalry. Colts between the ages of 1 and 3 are broken in to take a rider.
Good boy. Good boy. Good boy.
The first day can be scary. Trainers do all they can to prepare nervous youngsters for what's ahead. First, the headpiece or bridle is slipped on. Then it's off to class.
Good boy.
But these are reluctant students. Rebellion. The colt bolts.
The horses are very quick learners, and at times they even outsmart humans.
But freedom is fleeting. Trainers strap on a blanket. Just a hint of what the saddle will feel like. He does not like it, and will do whatever it takes to get it off. He does not know it yet, but this colt is a champion in the making. He has the pedigree, he will get the training. And in time, bring glory to India and the 61st Cavalry. For colts, training to be in India's 61st Cavalry, it's back to class again. This one gets his first taste of the bit, with reins attached. It's essential for communication between rider and horse. At last, the saddle or seat. A proper fitting distributes the rider's weight evenly and prevents injuries to the back. It's the uniform they'll wear for the rest of their working lives. They'd better get used to it. Trainers are patient but firm. They undergo 3 levels of instruction to learn all about horses. From equine anatomy and psychology to specialized techniques of horse training and obedience. They know exactly how to turn spirited rebels into disciplined troopers. The last school bell. Class is dismissed. It's the beginning of the rest of their lives. After all, they're in the army now. In an average lifespan of 25 years, horses will spend 15 to 20 years in service, retiring to these very paddocks to live out their final golden years. The Savar recruits have made it to the final weeks of their training. The riders surrender their reins and stirrups, everything they need to stay in the saddle. This is lane jumping. They must jump hurdle after hurdle, staying astride using just their legs. Our riders have come far. Savar recruit Iqbal Khan pushes his own limits. He is now closer to becoming a proud cavalryman.
The basic three military attributes that we aim at developing in a young new rider is of poise, coordination and courage.
The big day arrives. After weeks of grueling work, recruits have become Savars of the 61st Cavalry Regiment. It's a moment of pride.
बहुत खुश हो गए थे हम तो, क्योंकि बहुत इंतज़ार करने के बाद में हम कसम खा रहे थे और एक इंडियन आर्मी के एक जवान बन रहे थे।
मेरे फादर इस रेजिमेंट में सर्विस करके गए हुए हैं। मेरे फादर ने बताया, बोला इससे अच्छी इंडियन आर्मी की रेजिमेंट एकमात्र घुड़सवार सेना में अच्छी रैंक पे जाना बहुत उपलब्धि की बात होगी।
These 21st century cavalrymen will now hone their skills in equestrian sport. In arenas around the world, India's horse warriors will battle for sporting glory, for regiment and country. They are also the keepers of tradition and custodians of military heritage. 100 years ago, Indian lancers created history on horseback. Riding against all odds, they liberated the port town of Haifa from Turkish and German occupation in the Great War. It was one of the greatest cavalry victories of the 20th century. Now, India's horse warriors and keepers of a centuries-old legacy prepare to commemorate that historic victory. Proudly bearing their insignia of the double-headed eagle, the 61st Cavalry Regiment will ride on Haifa Day to honor India's lancers who touched glory 100 years ago.
Haifa Day is a very, very important day for us. It symbolizes the great sacrifice which our forefathers did in Haifa, Israel in 1918, fighting the great battle and one of the biggest cavalry charges in World War I.
We had worked over 3 to 4 months to put in a mounted parade for the colonel of the regiment, the chief of the Indian Army, General Bipin Rawat.
But storm clouds are gathering. And the parade, like the Lancers' mission on distant shores 100 years ago, is in serious jeopardy.
It was pouring that day, and I was little, I would say, nervous and worried.
It was almost like seeing all your efforts being washed away in the rain.
And then, just when all seems lost, the cavalry's luck shines again.
God was kind, and I think our ancestors must be looking upon us from top, that the rain just stopped in time.
The stage is set. The Chief of Army Staff presides.
श्रीमान, 10 अधिकारी, 11 सरदार, 180 सवार, 180 घोड़े, प्राण आपके निशान के लिए हाजिर हैं।
As colonel of the regiment, he will inspect the troops. But the audience to impress are the veterans. They have passed on the baton to a new generation. The Battle of Haifa is celebrated on September 23rd every year in present-day Israel. 100 years on, it still serves to cement the friendship between India and Israel. Dafadar Abrar Khan rides to honor his great-grandfather and every hero of Haifa. Their flag aloft, the cavalry rides into the pages of history, grand and glorious.